Peace and greetings. What's good? Naya here, and this is a video response. The hashtag is hashtag decktrim. I'm in a response to Pamela Theis. I hope I'm saying that right, Pamela. Your last name. So we're talking about decks that we've trimmed. So I spent a good portion of my day today actually kind of organizing my decks and stuff, and I came to the understanding that I really haven't trimmed very many decks, even though I feel like I've trimmed so many, but I really haven't. So the very first deck I ever trimmed is this guy right here. This is my Thoth. This is the large Thoth deck. I did this one by hand. Well, by hand. I can't cut it with my hand. I cut it with scissors. I did it freehand with scissors. And I pretty much spent like the whole weekend with this deck because I was just so, let me just move this so I can see what I'm showing you guys. Okay. There we go. So I think I did a pretty good job. I did edge the sides of it with black Sharpie. And yeah, I mean, I really spent my time with it. I had the corner rounder and the whole bit, and I don't know. I think I feel like the artwork in this deck exploded as soon as the borders were gone. Those nasty, these borders right here. I decided to leave the bottom border on because I'm learning this. I think I'm more familiar with the images at this point in time, but I knew I was wanting to get into it and study it. So I was like, let me go ahead and at least leave the titles on the bottom because I can, I know what I'm looking at and I know what I'm working towards. So anyway, so do I regret chopping this one? Hell no. I feel like it opened up this world for me. Like I really was able to appreciate the artwork because the borders are just so horribly distracting. It really does, and this deck is so good, you guys. It just is. Like as soon as like when you look at it like this, like it's nothing but colorful. Like it's beautiful. It's beautiful. So I love this deck, and let me give you a size comparison here. So this was a large Thoth deck, so it's now trimmed, and this is its size. So it's a really comfortable size. That's a standard size card right there, Triumph de Luna, right? So it's just a little bit wider, a touch longer. Can you see that? Yeah. And so it's super comfortable, and you can really see the images on there. All the details. There's a lot of details, more than I care to admit at times. So that was my very first deck that I ever trimmed, that I ever dared to trim. I did also trim so this is like the regular size Thoth deck, and I was so happy with this one that I decided to trim the smaller one. So what happened is now it feels like a mini size deck. Oh god, push off here. So here is the tin size Centennial in comparison. So it is basically a mini size Thoth deck now that I created. So this was the normal size, but when you take the borders off, that's what you end up with. So the only thing that happened with this, like the cardstock, like you can see here, like it started fraying and stuff like that. I don't like, I care. It does hurt me a little bit to see that, but I mean, the cardstock is not the greatest, and I use them, so you know, I figured that was gonna happen. I thought about maybe taking a black Sharpie to it to at least like make sure that I don't see any white, but I've had this for a while, so I mean, I use it, but see, it's even coming off in the fronts too. So just beware, like for this particular one, that could happen, just because the cards are already small as it is, so it's just manhandling them can be an issue. But I don't regret trimming these. I still feel the same way, that without the borders, it really just brings this deck to life, like it really does. So I have basically a mini Thoth and a standard Thoth, but when you go to trim them, like make sure you get the large size and then the normal size, because when you take off all the borders, that's what happens to the image. It's so crazy. So then I trimmed a regular Rider Waite. I'm kind of boring, I just realized. So the plaid backs, I wanted to see, and this was before that Centennial Borderless edition came out. I wanted to see what this deck would be like without borders and titles, because I'm so familiar with this deck. I just wanted to see what would happen, and for the price point, you know, I figured, what could it hurt? You know, if I messed it up, you know, it'd be my own fault. But I actually like how it came out. In comparison to a standard size, this is how much I lost. So, you know, here's the mini version. So it's somewhere between standard and mini version, or 10 size version rather. But yeah, so I love how this deck feels. I was never crazy about this particular Rider Waite in the yellow box, like just the coloration and stuff like that. But you know what? It doesn't matter. I'm just so familiar with the... See, I kind of messed this one up here. See, I had to cut off one of the pentacles because I manage that. And so yeah, like some of the little defects in the cutting job, like I remember very well, because this is a stage card and like part of his foot came off. So yeah, it was super interesting to do this, but like I know what all of these cards are. Like I don't need the titles to say, oh, this is, you know, this is this is that. These images are clear. That's the best part about the Rider Waite, is that the images are just clear. Once you know them, you have them, you know them. Okay, so so do I regret this one? No, because I feel like it helped me to bond with the plaid backs, because I always kind of had a resistance towards the plaid backs. Don't ask me why. My favorite is Centennial edition, and now currently Pam's Vintage. So yeah, there's that. But I don't regret trimming this one. It was a fun experience. And then this guy here, my little bug that I have there, is the Star Tarot, because the borders were horrendous. They were just too big and bulky. So I went to town on this deck this year. Okay, let me re-explain something too. The big Thoth deck I did with scissors. The rest of them I used this guillotine thing that I picked up from Michael's or Hobby Lobby or one of those craft stores. And so it's just a little guillotine slicer, and I do have a corner rounder. So all the other decks I did with the slidey guillotine thing. Anyway, so here's the Star Tarot, and here is the 10 size Centennial. So as you can see, it is relatively it's pretty small now. It's a good hand size to handle for my hands and stuff. The cards, as far as thickness goes, like as a stack, like it's a chunky deck, man. It's really meaty, like, you know. One thing I'm not crazy about is that it's super glossy. I'm like, no, why? But it is very beautiful if you haven't seen this deck before. I did pick it up this year. I haven't done a review on this one yet because I haven't used it often enough. But I decided to trim off all the borders and all the titles because they were a little bit confusing. I mean, like, this definitely looks like the 9 of Swords in the Rider Waite, but when they got to the court cards, it got a little funky. I'll just say that. So there's that. So yeah, so those are the only decks that I have trimmed. And I think part of that issue is that I don't want to just go crazy trimming decks because I don't want my little guillotine thing to get dull and then ruin a deck that I really, really want to trim, perhaps. Or actually, so yeah, so I did the Star Tarot. Since I spend a good chunk of my day cleaning, I'm probably not going to start this tonight, but I am, the next deck on the chopping block for me is the Mario. I absolutely love this deck. It's a brick to take in my purse with me everywhere, you know, and I can't. It's too big. So I definitely want to trim it. I feel like the same thing would happen that did for the large Thoth deck, that the images are going to burst out of the frames even further, even more than they already do, because this deck is gorgeous. And I've worked with it some, not extensively though, and but I want to explore this further, but I also would like it to feel more manageable in my hands, and yeah, I want to be able to put it in my purse and take with me when I'm out and about. Of course I can do that anyways, but trust me, I can't with the extra heavy on my shoulders, man. It kills me. So yeah, so that's where I'm at as far as like deck modifications and stuff like that. Did I edge the Star Tarot? No, I didn't edge it. I've edged other decks, but this is about trimming decks, so that's why I probably feel like I've done a lot of stuff with decks, because I've edged a lot of decks but not necessarily trimmed them. So this is my video on the decks that I've trimmed. Thank you, Pam, for the tag, and anybody else who wants to join in and share, you know, what was your first deck that you've ever trimmed, I believe was the prompt that she asked. I'll leave the questions in the down bar, just if you want to chime in. You know, did you regret trimming any of them? I didn't regret trimming any of these, but I've also given it a lot of thought before I decided to do so. And was it scary the first time I did it? Heck yeah, I was freaking out. All right, thanks for watching. Until next time, much love, many blessings, peace.